Imagine a very ordinary family. I, Trevor Fruiton, am a 45-year-old man with a thinning hairline. I maintain a decent physique, although I have not managed to achieve elusive ABS. It wouldn't hurt to lose a few pounds either, but I must admit that I don't really like facial hair. Instead of glasses, I prefer contact lenses. Michelle has an elegant figure, including a small belly and a rounded back, which I find very attractive. Michelle can be described as an ordinary woman, not particularly ugly and not stunningly beautiful, so she is unlikely to attract long-term attention. Despite her 45 years, she prefers to wear glasses and categorically does not like abbreviations of her name. Our family is complemented by Ollie, our 21-year-old daughter, a bright college student like her mother. Ollie has gained a little weight since playing volleyball at school. Despite her independence and open advocacy of women's rights, she is still heavily dependent on us. In recent years, our financial situation has been difficult since I am the sole breadwinner. Therefore, I firmly decided not to burden Ollie with student debts. In return, she reluctantly agreed to live at home, but this does not mean that Michelle and Ollie do not like luxury. While I drive an old F-150, they own expensive luxury sedans. Unfortunately, there is little equity in our house because their luxurious lifestyle had to be financed somehow. Loans for the purchase of housing came to the rescue, which solved our financial problems, as in many other suburban dreams. Our life follows a typical pattern. From time to time, we get together for neighborhood parties, although there is no special closeness between us and our neighbors. It's just a way to pass the time on the weekend. Fortunately, we have developed a close relationship with our nearest neighbors, a married couple from the next street. Their daughter, Sally, is Ollie's best friend. But when Ollie left for college, Sally felt a deep emptiness like my wife. They had spent so much time together, and now there was a void in her life. The expansion of participation in volunteer activities has apparently failed to fill this gap. One evening, I decided to raise this topic with Michelle. "Are you happy?" I asked her. She seemed puzzled and asked, "What makes you happy?" I explained, "I am happy with my life lately." "You've become detached and lost your enthusiasm." "I miss the pleasant time we spent together, for example, with Ollie." "I guess I'm a little bored." "Maybe I'm doing something wrong, or should I do something for you?" She reassured me, "Everything is fine with us. I don't have any complaints." Confused by her answer, I asked her about the motives of her questions. "Why all these questions?" "I just want you to be happy." I assumed that she would seek help from a consultant who would help her find balance and tell her how to cheer up. She answered uncertainly, "I don't know. I'll think about it." When the air got a little colder, I dismissed the idea. But 2 weeks later, Michelle decided to start weekly classes with a life coach. I guess we could have expected a surge of passion in our bedroom, at least I hoped for it. Unfortunately, this did not happen. We have remained constant intimate partners with a frequency of twice a week, and it seems that this will continue indefinitely. I don't complain because Michelle accepts my occasional moments of premature pleasure, just as I tolerate her occasional simulated climaxes. Normality is a subjective concept, and frankly, I cannot determine where we are in relation to it. I have never discussed my personal life with anyone, and I do not encourage my friends to share intimate details of their relationships. My neighbors, Mark and Cindy, are a couple in their 60s who live south of me. Mark, despite his reserved nature, does not really know how to work with his hands, and he has more chances to accidentally injure himself than to successfully fix something. On the other hand, Cindy bakes beautifully and often spoils him with delicious treats, as a result of which he gains a few extra pounds. One pleasant weekend, I was at their house, repairing the sauna pump which Mark had been waiting for 4 months to get the necessary part. At the beginning of December, such opportunities rarely fall out, and I took advantage of the moment. Our sliding door to the patio has experienced more prosperous times, making a scratching sound when opening. This familiar sound caught my attention. Unless Michelle has returned from her mother, then it must be Ollie. This was confirmed when I heard her talking. He must be inside somewhere, his car was parked outside. It's been a long time since I last saw him, so I'm in the backyard sitting in the gazebo. Haven't you thought about it? I paused for a moment, realizing that Ollie was deliberately hiding this conversation from my ears. "Oh my God, Mom, you're completely outdated. Maybe give Max a chance." Sally claims that he is quite experienced and eager to please. "Maybe this is exactly what you need to break out of the monotonous routine of the bedroom." What? What is it about? My wife told our daughter about the problems in our intimate life. We obviously have some unresolved issues, but she didn't discuss anything with me about it. Where did this sudden revelation come from? And trusting our daughter is simply inappropriate. I understand that you need time to think about everything. By the way, Dad mentioned that next weekend he will participate in the hunt. I'll ask Jeff to invite Max to our house. Sally mentioned that Max is a little thin, but he seems to have a strong attraction to you. Sally also mentioned that physical data. When anger began to overwhelm me, I paused to make sure I understood the situation correctly. So my daughter is going to arrange a meeting between Michelle and Jeff's friend. You don't have to agree, but Sally suggested that you might want to experiment with Max. The subsequent pause may have been caused by my growing frustration. It looks like they conspired to ruin my marriage too. I can't help but wonder what I've done to deserve this situation. Okay, keep me posted. Love you. Goodbye. I was terribly upset, and it's probably lucky that I didn't hurt my eye while working with this problematic pump. The atmosphere at home throughout the week was terrible. I deliberately did everything to annoy Michelle and Ollie, and it worked because I spent most of my time in my office or in the garage. My power tools are now sharpened and look like new. I didn't postpone the hunting trip, but I asked someone to keep an eye on Michelle's actions. Photos of Ollie, Jeff, and a skinny child who entered the house around noon appeared in the house. About 2 o'clock, Sally and Jeff left, the skinny child followed suit. About 4 hours later, I came back. On Sundays, Michelle was wearing sweatpants and trying to be overly affectionate, hugging and smiling, but I didn't react to her gestures. Although it wasn't conclusive evidence, I couldn't help but notice that Michelle was sitting cross-legged, leaning heavily to the left, which was more than her usual demeanor. Maybe someone's backside was a little tender. Later in the kitchen, Ollie crossed everyone's fate by playfully slapping Michelle on the ass, causing both of them to burst into giggles. Pretending to cough, I felt a heaviness in my chest. I hope that my wife, who was completely unaware of the case, did not infect me with anything. I'll sleep on the couch in the living room. Michelle decided not to continue her plans. In the morning, I mentioned that I was having difficulty breathing and needed to see a doctor, although it was just a pretense. Fortunately, my boss didn't mind me taking the day off. I wanted to pretend that I had COVID-19, which gave me the opportunity to speed up my departure. Having a significant amount of accumulated sick leave and vacations, I could afford to take this break. This would allow me to attend our traditional Christmas Eve dinner. When I announced that I had COVID-19, I knew that it would scare everyone away. I'm not sure if I had COVID-19. I have received both doses of the vaccine and feel incredibly healthy, although my heart is broken, and I feel a strong sense of anger towards 4 people. My respiratory system has remained unaffected. In order not to live in discomfort, I decided to stay in a long-stay hotel. I was relieved when my wife expressed her happiness to know that I would be out of quarantine before Christmas Eve. She and her daughter called me twice a day. Instead of showing my true emotions, I remained polite but pretended to be tired in order to end the conversation. At this time, I was preoccupied with coming up with carefully thought-out revenge plans. I need to make a list of changes for all my financial matters, including wills, beneficiaries, and emergency contacts. I had no idea how many attachments and responsibilities I had accumulated over time. Finding a new apartment was a difficult test that made me fully aware of the permanent nature of my decision to divorce Michelle and end Ollie's financial dependence on me. Jeff deserves some consequences for his actions, although I'm not sure how to react to Max's behavior. When a person is overcome with anger, he can have a lot of thoughts and ideas. If I took up most of the activities that came to my mind, then my plans for the future would be in jeopardy. One of the ideas inspired by the news suggested hiring an escort to lure Jeff into a trap, imitating the company's tactics to eliminate unwanted employees. But this plan was to cause significant harm to Ollie, who in my opinion deserved such consequences. Preparing for Christmas, we sat at the table in the dining room, admired the plastic Christmas tree decorated with flashing red, white, and green lights, and inhaled the festive aroma emanating from pine cones. Over the past 23 years, we have turned the annual meetings into a tradition, but not everyone attended the first 2 meetings. Michelle worked tirelessly in the kitchen, and now we were all sitting at the table and enjoying the meal. Usually, at this moment, it was possible to briefly express my gratitude, but not this time. When I got up to make a speech, it became clear that my toast would not be frivolous. So, I turned to Jeff and casually asked him what he thought of Heather. The question seemed to knock the color off Jeff's face and caught the attention of Ollie, who has been in a relationship with Jeff since high school. It was hard to imagine anyone doubting that they would be together in 50 years. Jeff hesitated and said, "Heather? I don't understand who you're talking about." Jeff's denial was unconvincing, as if he would rather jump out of a speeding train. He resorted to the classic tactic of politicians: deny everything. "I don't remember hearing that name," he muttered. But I was not convinced, and I decided to play my own card. I turned on an audio recording on my mobile phone where Heather's voice exclaims, "Oh Jeff, you're great. I'm glad to meet you again." I quickly turned off the recording, hoping that all my doubts that it was Jeff's voice would disappear along with the fading sound waves. Ollie, on the contrary, completely lost control of herself and began to fly into a rage. "How could you betray me like that, freak? Just leave now, get out of here." Jeff didn't even have time to react as I quickly got behind him and pressed on his shoulders, holding him in place. Jeff and I managed to fend off Ollie's desperate attempt to harm him. "Ellie, you're acting like a wild animal. Why don't you take your daughter to another room and try to calm her down? I need to have a serious talk with Jeff." Michelle forcibly led Ollie out of the dining room into the kitchen, and the commotion did not go unnoticed as a flood of expletives filled the room, causing tension among the serene serving bowls. Within a short period of time, I explained to Jeff the further course of events. I made it clear that he was obliged to warn Max against meeting me, since the consequences of such a meeting would make Max regret his existence as a person for an infinitely long time. Jeff was sternly warned that his involvement in this case was completely unacceptable, and I made it clear that I did not want to catch his eye anymore. The power of his face indicated that he realized how much his position had decreased and how limited the choice facing him was. I handed him the envelope. Jeff agreed to do the last assignment on my behalf. I called loudly in the direction of the kitchen, urging Michelle to come back and bring Ollie with her. We were ready to talk. If looks could cause harm, then Allie's gaze directed at Jeff would be fatal. Michelle was sitting with a puzzled expression on her face. Both of them were visibly upset because of the tears. "First of all, let me explain how I got this record. Jeff, this woman's name isn't Heather. I really don't know her real name. She works as an escort, and I paid a considerable sum to hire her to lure you into a tempting meeting and record the whole process. There's also a video if someone wants to watch it." "What the hell did you hire her for?" she continued in shock. "Yes, honey, I did," I replied calmly. Ollie couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, as if she had been stabbed in the back. Michelle let out a thin, frightened squeak. Her eyes met Ollie's and quickly looked away. Both women were visibly shocked, tears streaming down their faces. "Jeff, it's your turn to talk," I said, switching my cell phone camera to video mode. Jeff got up from his seat, picked up the folder in front of him, and addressed Michelle directly. "Michelle Fruton, you have been officially served with a notification," he announced, handing her a folder. The tension in the room was palpable as we waited for Michelle's reaction. I couldn't figure out if she would be sick or pass out. At first, she lost consciousness, and then, having regained consciousness, she began to vomit. The pine cones seemed insignificant compared to what happened next. Jeff handed Michelle the divorce papers and quickly left the house, leaving Ollie to console her upset mother. Ellie's tears flowed incessantly, unable to contain the overwhelming gravity of the situation. Meanwhile, in the master bedroom, I took control of the chaos outside. Ollie's valuable thing, her gift to the end of her 4-year training, was safely stowed in a carrier and disappeared from sight. All her valuables were thrown into a garbage bag and left on the porch of the house. Soon, Michelle's luxurious beads drove up to the house. The contrast between the two cars was obvious. Her belongings were transferred to a battered sedan that had served for 23 years, symbolizing the duration of our marriage. According to my lawyer, I was still obliged to provide Michelle with transportation. I double-checked while I was drinking bourbon. All of our credit cards, including Ali's credit card on which I was a co-borrower, were repaid and canceled. Cell phones were also canceled. Once again, I was responsible for providing Michelle with a new phone. The plan provided 60 minutes of conversations and 100 text messages. Unfortunately, Ali didn't get the same benefits. Despite this, both still had iPhones with an impressive 16 cameras or something similar. They had to find and pay for their own tariff plan. As for the house, there was now a for sale sign on the garage. I made a few determined swings with the hammer and proudly installed it in the front yard. But I couldn't sell the house yet because it had Michelle's name on the property rights. I just wanted her to have an idea of what the future holds for us. Instead of staying in the living room where Christmas music was playing by the Christmas tree, I found solace in the basement. There, sitting in the dark, I found peace, especially when I heard what chaos was happening over me. It was obvious that nothing they once owned was functioning properly. They threw unpleasant words at me, but these words seemed soft compared to the ones I shouted in my empty hotel room. Preparing for this day, Trevor, we need to talk. Perhaps he went out for a walk because his car was parked on the street. Strangely, my car is nowhere to be found. Maybe he took it. To make matters worse, my phone isn't answering either. My car has really disappeared. Maybe his father took him. It can't be that he drives both cars. Whose disgusting car is parked in front of the house? It looks like my phone isn't working either. I hope this jerk didn't cancel my phone connection. Let's go ask Cindy if she'll let us use her phone. I tightly closed the entrance locks. Now they were outside the house without working phones and credit cards. Moreover, since both of their purses were left here, they did not have any identification documents with them. I didn't feel any remorse when I set both driver's licenses to our paper shredder. I am sure that this will cause them considerable discomfort. After filling a glass, I turned on the TV and watched a cheap special. For a short time, our current circumstances could not but differ from the spiritual atmosphere that was shown in this program. The choice in favor of silence seemed to me more reasonable. Suddenly, there was a commotion at the front door. It was Michelle and Ali, who returned. It was at this moment that Michelle's daughter, whom I no longer consider my own, saw the contents of a garbage bag standing by the porch. Ali let out a shocked exclamation when she realized that everything she had in her car was now in this package. My father got rid of my car, but I refused to believe it. I can't imagine that he did that because it was completely out of character for him. But I have another version, Mom. Maybe the reason your car is missing is that he really sold it. If that's the case, I swear I'll spit in his face. I love this car. Because of the constant ringing of the doorbell, it was difficult to hear their conversation. There were two women standing outside the door holding festive napkins in their hands, so it would be stupid to open the door. Michelle was furious and demanded that I open the door immediately, pointing out that it was freezing outside. In response, I shouted to them, "Michelle, the keys to your new car are in the ignition. Your car is an orange-green Malibu parked outside the house. All the things from your previous car were moved into it. I was informed that the stove warms for a long time, but the gas tank is full. Perhaps you could offer your car to Max and stay with him. Maybe he still has feelings for you." After a short silence, Michelle tried to change to a softer tone and said, "Trevor, I know you can hear me. Happy holidays to you. It's time for you to leave, Michelle, and please take your unpleasant daughter with you." After a while, the aging Malibu came to life. Although it looked like it needed a new muffler, it's not surprising considering that the guy practically gave me a car just to get rid of it. I won't spend my money on repairing it. Without too much fuss, they drove away from the house. It's been a long time since I've heard of someone being poisoned by carbon monoxide due to a faulty muffler. Maybe luck will be on my side this time, although it was unlikely. An hour later, my father-in-law's number appeared on the screen of my mobile phone. Although we're not exactly close friends, we managed to communicate perfectly. "Hi, Trevor. I have a couple of upset women here. I thought you might have some understanding of the situation. Call me, and by the way, Merry Christmas." I turned off the sound on my mobile phone and sipped my eggnog with fizzy drinks, letting the adrenaline gradually subside. The flickering lights of the artificial Christmas tree gently lulled me into a peaceful slumber. When I woke up on this cool Christmas morning, the sun greeted me with its radiant radiance. There was a collection of cold serving dishes on the dining table, but fortunately, the microwave quickly warmed up my breakfast ham with cheese potatoes, a delicious dish suitable for any time of the day. In anticipation of the holiday, a stack of gifts was eagerly waiting for its turn to be opened. To my disappointment, Santa Claus left me empty-handed. The gifts lying under the decorated Christmas tree were intended for the evening celebration. If anyone had been observant, they would have noticed the absence of gifts from me to any of them. I did not unwrap the donated items, but preferred to collect the most expensive things that I wanted to take with me. Not a single photo captured our shared memories. I was trapped, and everything I came across was now scattered on the ground. It was only a few days later that Michelle found me at my house. The sun had already set, and a bitter breeze was in the air when I opened the door. I left the latch on the lock, half expecting that another presentation on the sale of poinsettias for a youth sports team was waiting for me. But to my surprise, a pale-faced Michelle stood in front of me, devoid of the usual makeup and styled hair. "Trevor, please don't close the door," she begged. I hesitated, giving her the opportunity to continue. "What do you need, Michelle?" I asked. She asked for an opportunity to explain and asked if she could come in. "No, please, Trevor," she begged, her voice filled with despair. "There is no need for the neighbors to be aware of this situation. I don't understand why you can't make sense of the word no. I want to explain everything to you. First of all, I want to offer my sincere apologies. I don't justify my actions," Michelle continued gently, admitting that she had an intimate relationship with Max. "So, you had intimate contact with Max?" "Well, this is very unexpected," I remarked. Her eyes widened when she realized that I knew about it. "You're going to divorce me without any proof? The concept of guest rights is still alive. Have you already hired a lawyer?" she questioned. "I am currently in the process, but I sincerely believe that we will be able to solve our problems and avoid a divorce," I responded. "It's a little late for that now, don't you think? Why didn't you take any steps to save our marriage a month ago? I know the reason, because you're selfish and consider yourself untouchable. Did you think you could do whatever you wanted without any consequences?" Michelle was struck by the bitterness in my tone. "But this was the only case, please believe me. That one stupid choice shouldn't ruin our marriage, although I can admit to a few stupid decisions. Considering the possibility of infidelity may give you some leniency, but nevertheless, treason is certainly destructive. By hiding your wrong actions, you have lost any chance of reconciliation. It's even sadder that you dragged your daughter into this. Yes, I don't want to have anything to do with her anymore. This whole situation is entirely your fault. If you had kept quiet about what was going on in her personal life, she would never have been involved in this. Some neighbors found entertainment in observing this chaotic situation. Trevor, I deeply apologize. How can I make amends? Michelle pleaded. Unfortunately, nothing. I think I'll be better off without you, whether it turns out to be true or not. It's up to me to make the decision, I replied firmly. Trevor, I understand that you are offended and angry, but please refrain from any action for a few weeks. It was only a brief moment of weakness. What can I do to convince you? She asked desperately. Just go away and don't bother me anymore. And now, if I may, the break is over, and the bowling game is about to resume. I appreciate your visit, but unfortunately, I'm closing the door, I stated firmly. Michelle begged and knocked, but my noise-canceling headphones successfully blocked the sound. I do not know how much time has passed, but when morning came, she was nowhere to be found. Almost a year later, minus one day, I was sitting in my lonely two-room apartment, continuing the tradition of Christmas Eve. Of my own accord, I prepared a modest dinner for myself. At first, I had a hard time with cooking, and although they say that betrayal feels like a stab in the back, it really broke my heart, self-esteem, and self-confidence. I managed to maintain my self-respect throughout this ordeal. There were countless nights when I doubted whether I had gone too far, but deep down, I never agreed with this opinion. Eventually, I got to the point where I felt unnecessary and decided to leave. It was very simple. At that time, when I was in a state of uncertainty after the divorce, it seemed to me that I had failed. My attitude to work became sour. I often began to snap at colleagues, which is why my boss repeatedly made a remark to me. Gradually, I stopped communicating with people and began to lead the life of a recluse. My colleagues learned to give me freedom, and I focused exclusively on work, coping with my duties perfectly. I deliberately decided to refrain from attending corporate parties, and when friends tried to set me up with them, I politely refused such offers. Gradually, my friends began to disappear one by one. It seemed that my endless pity party stayed for a long time. In search of solace, I turned to running with headphones in my ears. People passed by without bothering me, but this new hobby, along with cooking for myself, made me lose a few pounds. Accordingly, the old clothes no longer fit me, and I had to switch to a more modern style. Occasionally, one of my colleagues would make a kind remark about my appearance, but it didn't go beyond that. The divorce seemed to drag on endlessly, lasting a grueling 9 months. Eventually, when we reached the breaking point, our house quickly found a new owner. Instead of monthly support, Michelle received the lion's share of revenue from him. Sally and Jeff went their separate ways. It seemed that Michelle's cheating was more acceptable than Jeff's actions. Last spring, Jeff, while intoxicated, confronted me and angrily accused me of bringing him and Heather together. He always found someone to blame for his mistakes. I wasn't around when he was with Heather. He was weak like most men his age and easily succumbed to the persuasions of a seductive temptress. As for Ollie, she was desperately trying to express her anger at me. She left angry voicemails, but I never answered. Maybe someday I'll answer her call, but it's unlikely, so don't bet on it. I didn't get an invitation to her graduation, but I didn't attend it either. Michelle was going through a particularly difficult time. Since we got married, she has never worked, and it was difficult for her to get a job somewhere. In order to delay the resolution of financial issues, my lawyer delayed the process as much as possible. As a result, when the house was sold, I paid all the money that, according to the court, she should have received for maintenance. As a result, we both lost a comfortable lifestyle. At several legal consultations, Michelle tried to convince me that she made incredibly stupid decisions, but in her opinion, this is not enough reason to put out of my head the almost 25 years that we have lived together. I looked at her with an empty expression on my face, which caused a few tears to flow out of her eyes. Hatred, a strong emotion, clung to me tightly, and I could hardly contain it. A year passed, and we were sitting in my apartment, continuing the tradition of Christmas Eve. I was joined by Macy, a friend who was going through the same thing as me. No, we weren't romantic partners. I wasn't ready for that yet. After cleaning up the dishes, Macy led me to the center of the living room, where we danced. From time to time, snuggling up to each other, I longed for the comforting presence of a woman ready to snuggle up to me for her warmth, which I missed so much. But after about 10 songs, Macy wiped away a tear and went back home. We were both spoiled. The tunnels in the voice messages she left once a month have changed. She was apologizing. Despite this, I never bothered to answer her calls. My caring mom accidentally found out that Michelle had moved in with some unsuspecting fool. Surprisingly, my reaction to this news was mostly indifferent. Gradually, I began to engage in small talk with people again. Former colleagues avoided me, and new ones just found me unusual. Making friends has always been difficult for me, but with Macy, I managed to bridge this gap. We're just friends. At the end of January, I received a letter from Ollie in my mailbox. Part of me hesitated to open it, not knowing what might be in it, but curiosity got the better of me. And when I opened the letter, I saw a short note accompanied by a selfie. In the photo, Ollie was standing with a gloomy expression on her face, holding her rounded stomach. The words from the note pierced my heart. Daddy, I deeply apologize for the mistakes I made. As you can see, I'm pregnant. I wonder if you can find the strength in your heart to accept your grandson into your life. But if not, then I understand. With love, Ollie. The return address indicated that Ollie had moved several counties away, and I wondered about her current situation. There was no mention of her husband nor any clues about her marital status. I squinted at the photo for signs of rings on her fingers, but they were difficult to distinguish in the picture. I despised the impact she had on my life, but my desire to have grandchildren remained unchanged. Despite my contempt for their mother, it took me a few weeks to gather my thoughts before answering. During this time, Macy and I have gone our separate ways, recognizing that we are only sources of support for each other. She made the decision to move far away from here and start all over again. After hugging me several times, she said goodbye to my life. To keep my sanity, I decided to play pickleball at a local recreation center. Although this is a shortened version of tennis, it has completely different rules. In the end, I found myself playing with people who have a similar level of training. There's something high school feedback about it. Shannon burst into my life with a bang. It seems at about the same age as me, like most of the people I play with. Being not very skilled, I often missed the ball. Unfortunately, one of my throws accidentally hit Shannon right between her breasts. Her friends playfully suggested that I kiss her to make it better, which made Shannon's face even redder. When we left after the game, Shannon jokingly said that the least I could do was buy her a soft drink. "Hello, my name is Shannon. What about you?" "Oh, Trevor. I'm sorry for accidentally hitting you. It wasn't on purpose. I must admit I don't really know how to play games. In fact, it's even harder for me to engage in conversation, especially with women. By the way, there is a cafe, Jamba Juice, in this shopping center. How about you treat me, Trevor? Don't you want to take a walk there?" Of course, why not? In the process of communication, we got to know each other better. While Shannon expressed her thoughts easily, my answers were far from elegant. As our conversation continued, Shannon noticed my self-doubt. "If I may ask, are you in a relationship?" "No, Shannon. No, to be honest. I don't think I'll ever have a relationship." "Did she leave, or did she leave you?" "She cheated on me, and I couldn't accept it. It's been a few years, and I probably haven't come to terms with it." "Are you dating anyone?" "I go on dates sometimes, but nothing serious." "When was the last time you went on a date?" "Well, I haven't been on a date since we broke up. I invited people to dinner, but nothing more." "When did your marriage end?" "It's been a whole 26 months since it happened in December." "It would seem that there's nothing sad about it, actually." "No, it took me a long time, several years, to regain my self-confidence after I was abandoned." For satisfaction, my palms were sweating from the current conversation, and Shannon noticed it. To distract from the topic, Shannon suggested that we talk about something else. "So, why did you decide to start playing paintball?" "I'm tired of indulging in self-pity, and I decided it was time to find something new to occupy my time. That's how I got into the game. My friends constantly pestered me until I finally gave in. Surprisingly, I really like it." "And you?" "Oh, definitely. Do I have to leave?" "I'll see you tomorrow." "I have a match at 4 p.m. definitely. It was nice talking to you, Shannon." "Me too, Trevor. Stay strong, everything will get better." That night, I felt confident enough to answer Ollie. "Ollie, I don't mind trying. Although we may never be close, I would like to at least get to know my grandson. Please let me know when the right moment comes. But I refuse to be in the same room with your mother, no matter what." According to my calculations, the delivery date should have taken place in May or June, but I'm not sure if Ollie got my answer because I haven't received another letter from her. In addition, the next day, during a pinball game, Shannon and several other ladies were flirtatious. I was pleased. After a particularly successful punch, Shannon jokingly remarked that I looked great in my shirt and that I might look even better without it. The women laughed, and I felt my face turn red. "Funny you should mention that, Shannon. It seemed to me that you look very good in those yoga pants. It seems to me that you would look even better without them." When Shannon blushed, the room filled with uncontrollable laughter. The women began to playfully sing along, urging me to take off my shirt. Reluctantly, I yielded to their request and took it off, but Shannon shook her head vigorously and began to scold me as if I had behaved badly. Under the wolf whistle of several ladies, I quickly put my shirt back on. Shannon muttered the words, "You're terrible," in my direction, to which I responded with a kiss. When the games ended, some women started flirting, and one even complimented Shannon on how amazing she looks without yoga pants. Shannon waited patiently for her turn, keeping her composure. I decided to treat the girl to a refreshing drink, and coincidentally, I was just about to ask her a question. I complimented her on her beautiful yoga pants, but she quickly told me to stop. Judging by her ear-to-ear grin, she was quite pleased with herself. While we were enjoying drinks, I plucked up the courage and invited Shannon to dinner and a movie. I was scared of the thought that she would reject me, but fortunately, she accepted my invitation. I couldn't get enough of it. Being out of the dating scene for over 27 years, I felt clueless, clumsy, and very nervous, but over time, I managed to relax, and I regained my former cheerful character. After a few dates, Shannon managed to convince me to stay the night. I was stunned when she asked me, "Who are you thinking about when we were close?" This question took me by surprise, and I had to pause and think. My answer was simple: about you. I couldn't help but wonder what she saw in a man like me, a self-proclaimed loser. It was as if I saw myself in her eyes, just a reflection in the mirror. At the beginning of June, Shannon snuggled up to me in bed and touched on the topic of Grandpa's celebration. When she took my hand, her words made me realize that she might be aware of what I didn't know. She informed me that there was only one major hospital in the vicinity, so she was monitoring the registry of newborns. It turned out that a woman named Ollie Freud recently gave birth to a girl. This news relieved my tension, but Shannon's warm lips quickly revived my desire. Instead of physical intimacy, we preferred a more intimate connection in the form of passionate kisses. Exhausted and tired, I hugged Shannon, seeking comfort in her presence. In uncertainty, I was thinking about my next actions. Perhaps sending flowers would be an appropriate gesture, not necessarily overflowing with love but expressing recognition of her newfound motherhood. And then, a day after sending the flower arrangement, a night letter unexpectedly arrived. In this letter, as a father, I acknowledged the emptiness of my apologies and, at the same time, was convinced of their authenticity. The memories of that terrible breakdown on Christmas Eve haunted me, fueling my hatred for you. You ruined my relationship with Jeff by robbing me of my car, my phone, and, in fact, my entire lifestyle. For a long time, I kept bitterness and immaturity within myself, turning into an offended woman. After thinking about it, I began to look at things from your point of view. The treatment you received from us was undeserved, and I cannot forgive myself for my actions. I deeply regret that I was a terrible person, but since then, I have become much more aware of the lessons that you tried to teach me. I have gone through significant personal growth, and now I am a completely different person. The tears I shed were caused by pure evil. Although it won't be easy, I'm willing to make an effort. I long to bring your presence back into my life. I long for comfort in your arms at least once more. It is very important to me that you look into my eyes when I sincerely ask for forgiveness so that you can understand the depth of my remorse. I wish for your friendship. Once a close friend took the trouble to teach me the difference between good and evil, as well as to contrast weakness and strength. It was an important lesson for me. I often wonder what I can offer in return. The only thing that comes to mind is to give grandchildren. I named her Bonnie after your mother. Now, Bonnie and I live in my modest apartment. Since I'm not married, the two of us are against the whole world. You can always come visit me, or if you want, I can arrange for Bonnie to be with you while I'm not around. Please know that I will always remain your daughter, and I am hungry for your love again. With love, Ollie. I told Shannon about this letter, and she believes in its sincerity. What are your plans to protect you from her? She already damaged one of my previous relationships, and I value what we have, I said. As a result, I received a warm hug and a passionate kiss. Thank you, Trevor. No need to worry. I'm a strong personality and have built emotional barriers to keep unwanted people out. I don't know how you managed to break through these walls, but I am grateful to you for it, Shannon reassured me. We hugged each other tightly for a long time, moving gently as if dancing to a slow love song. I continued. Trevor, you have to understand that you can't completely love me while maintaining your hatred for them. Let her go so that our relationship can develop, Shannon advised. Shannon was right. It's time to leave the past behind, I thought. The headlights illuminated the apartment, which clearly indicated the return address of Ali. Shannon was standing next to me when I knocked softly on Ali's door. Ellie's eyes widened in surprise when she opened the door. "Come in, Daddy," she exclaimed. Inside, I introduced my daughter to Shannon. "Ellie, this is Shannon." "Shannon, meet my daughter Ellie." Gently kissing each other on the cheeks, we entered her cozy apartment. Ellie suggested, "Do you want to support Bonnie?" I settled down at the kitchen table, holding Bonnie gently to me. Surprisingly, she remained calm and did not shed a tear. It reminded me of how small and delicate their hands and feet are. When I looked at Shannon, I saw love in her eyes. Shannon brought up the subject by saying, "Ali, you've already told Bonnie's father about her birth." Ali replied, "No, Bonnie's father thinks I'm trying to trap him." We were intoxicated, and he didn't take any precautions. He knew I didn't take birth control. Maybe he'll change his mind, and maybe he won't. Ali and I carefully avoided each other throughout the evening. I left without hugging or kissing her. When I got into the car, Shannon scolded me, insisting that Ali should know that I still love her. "Shannon, I know you love her, and you know it too. Go back there and do it right," I replied. Leaving Shannon in the car, I went to Ali's door and knocked. She asked, "Did you forget something?" I replied, "I kind of forgot to hug you and express my love for you." It was such an emotional moment that it could have been the plot for a Hallmark movie. 6 months passed, and a few weeks later, we gathered in my apartment for our traditional Christmas Eve dinner. Shannon, Ali, and I were there, and I was holding Bonnie in my arms. I said the Christmas blessing, and then we enjoyed the meal and exchanged gifts. Bonnie got more presents than expected, but she seemed to like the way the wrapping paper made noise when she played with it. Because of the snowy weather, it was too risky to make a long trip on Christmas Eve. A year later, I let Ali and Bonnie live in my apartment, and Shannon and I started spending nights at her place regularly. Continuing the tradition of Christmas Eve, we were going to Shannon's house for a festive dinner before the wedding. We definitely signed a prenuptial agreement. I found myself being closely watched when I chatted with other pickleball players, but it didn't bother me. Carter Denton, Ali's husband, and Bonnie's father joined us this year. It took him a while, but eventually, he realized that he really wanted to be a part of Ali and Bonnie's life. Bonnie and I really like to cuddle together, which makes us great buddies. The role of grandfather brings me great joy. In addition, Shannon's children and grandchildren were present in the house, which created a warm and lively atmosphere during the Christmas gatherings. One of her sons kindly led the family's heartfelt blessing. Reflecting on life, I realized that it continues regardless of our participation. It took me a while to realize that life was slipping away from me, but this is no longer the case. I have found satisfaction in the place I have reached, and I am sincerely glad of my current position. Before you condemn me, I want to say that I bear full responsibility for the events that have occurred. But at the same time, it is important to understand that if my wife had not taken the action she took, our story could have gone a different way. Story 2. Let me introduce myself, Adam, a 32-year-old man. My ex-wife and I were married for 2 years, after which our paths diverged. The turning point came when I was sent to another country in connection with a job transfer, where I met Megan. Upon arrival in a new country, in an effort to get used to the situation as soon as possible, I went for a drink with a colleague. I didn't know yet that this chance meeting would lead me to Megan. Sitting alone at the bar, she gave off a spirit of openness that attracted me. Unfamiliar with each other in a foreign country, we struck up a conversation and launched into a familiar dance, telling each other our stories. Megan couldn't help but share with me and Jude, my colleague, the difficulties she faced at work that day. Perhaps if Megan had known what the future held for us, what pleasant memories we could create together, she would not have told so much about herself on that fateful night. After listening to her patiently for what seemed like an hour, she finally turned the conversation to me. I told her that my company had recently transferred me to her country. Interestingly, something in my story interested her, sparked a spark from which our friendship was born. That's how our communication began. If Megan and I had remained friends, it would have been a great life experience for me, relieving me of the pain and feelings of betrayal that I eventually experienced. When we got to know each other better, I found out that she works as a nurse. Gradually, she began to tell details about herself, including her dream of becoming a spider farmer and owning a large spider farm in the future. How ironic that children's dreams sometimes disappear. This moment served as a reminder of Megan's amazing sense of humor. I must admit that over all the years of dating and communicating with different girls, Megan stood out as one of the most sincere people I have ever encountered. She had an amazing ability to see through a person, and it was only after getting to know her family that I realized where she inherited this quality from. Moreover, she showed great kindness and treated everyone around her with the same respect, regardless of their social status. Her compassion extended to both friends and loved ones, and she rarely spoke ill of anyone. I believe that her character played a significant role in her successful work as a carer. In addition to being kind to acquaintances, Megan had an amazing ability to show compassion to strangers. It was one of those qualities that first captivated me that evening when we first met. One day, we went out for an evening walk, and after walking for a while, decided to go to the nearest shop to buy orange juice. When we collected our purchases and patiently waited for the sellers to finish serving the first customers, an elderly beggar approached the counter. He modestly asked for a bottle of water, saying that he did not have the means to pay for it. Personally, I thought that the seller had the opportunity to politely refuse if she did not want to help. But in response, to my horror, she yelled at the man, abruptly got up from her seat, and tried to force him out of the store. It was an unpleasant and sad situation that I observed. Unexpectedly, against my expectations, Megan started talking and accusing the sellers of rude treatment of an elderly person. She raised her voice, expressing her disagreement with their action. To my surprise, she went ahead and personally paid for a bottle of water for him. When I asked her what she had done, she said that this person reminded her of a loved one, and she felt it necessary to intervene. It seemed to me that her compassion was worthy of respect, especially considering the vulnerability and beggarly appearance of this man. As we were preparing to leave the store that evening, we heard murmurs from those around us suggesting that Megan was acting only out of a desire to get approval or to appear to be a person with a kind heart. But in fact, these thoughts were not far from the truth. Megan's act that night was a true reflection of her character. Despite the fact that our relationship ended, I'm sure that at that moment, Megan was just being herself. Moreover, kindness seemed to be an integral part of her family. The first day she invited me to dinner, I was amazed at the love and kindness her family treated me with. If I wasn't familiar with them, I would believe that these are rare people that the world doesn't know yet. The way they accepted me made me feel like a member of their family. Megan's stepfather, Bob, was very warm and open, and her mother, Lily, gave me such love that I wanted to become her biological son. As for Megan's half-brother, Max, he was just wonderful. Thanks to their hospitality, it seemed to me that I had been living in the country for a long time, and communication with them never made me feel like a stranger. After a year of meeting Megan and her family, it became clear to me that I fell in love with her very much. My heart belonged only to her, and I could not imagine myself with anyone else. She took over a huge part of me, and all I wanted was to live my whole life in a happy marriage with her and her family. When I finally plucked up the courage and confessed my feelings to Megan, it was an easy step towards a romantic relationship. She reciprocated, knowing that my affection for her was just as strong and sincere. Over time, our common life path became smoother. Fortunately, I already worked in one of the prestigious organizations in Megan's country, so we were not worried about financial issues. In less than 5 months, we carefully planned our wedding. When this momentous day came, my beloved family members and friends gathered to celebrate it with us and created a wonderful and joyful atmosphere. It's nice to remember that when I first received the notification of the transfer, I had doubts about this, but I didn't know that these changes would lead me to the love of my life and to a truly unforgettable celebration. But despite my initial plans, I ended up married to Megan and met her amazing family. After the wedding, we started a life together, doing what we love as a couple. I still can't understand why she ruined our happiness because our marriage was truly wonderful, and those dear moments that we shared have remained forever in my memory. Initially, we decided to postpone having a child because Megan and I felt not ready for this. She attached the utmost importance to our connection, urging us to enjoy each other's company and get all the pleasures out of life. She was not quite ready for the fact that during pregnancy her body would undergo changes, including morning sickness, peculiar addictions, and all the other accompanying symptoms. Nevertheless, I had a deep respect for her feelings. The fact that Megan, like her mother, constantly supported me as her spouse only increased my love for her. She perfectly understood the requirements of my job and was ready to move at any time when the company transferred me to another job. Fortunately, due to our marriage, I had the opportunity to apply for a permanent job in her country, and when the time came, I submitted it. Fortunately, it was approved, which saved us from worrying about frequent relocations. One of the motives for my actions was the immense joy I felt in the presence of Megan's family, which exceeded the one I experienced in the presence of my relatives or other people. Words cannot convey the emotions they evoked in me. I did not experience this either as a child or surrounded by my family members. This deep connection made me do everything necessary to preserve it. Especially after the wedding, her brother was a frequent visitor to our house, and I was sincerely glad of his presence. He became like a younger brother to me, and seeing his close connection with Megan, I realized that he valued his sister very much and wanted to spend time with her. In addition, I sincerely enjoyed communicating with Max. We often drank together, and sometimes our fun led to the fact that he stayed the night at our house when we might have had too much alcohol. Max and I have become a kind of tradition to arrange a friendly competition. Whoever drinks more without succumbing to intoxication and who wins, he will receive the whole money bank. This entertainment gave us great pleasure, and Megan sometimes joined us on those evenings when she wanted to do it. But our happiness was overshadowed when Megan's stepfather passed away 2 years after the wedding, which plunged her into a deep depression. This pain was not only hers, the whole family mourned this loss, especially her mother, who loved Bob very much. I must admit, I also felt the loss of Bob keenly and missed his absence from our lives when I listened to his infectious laughter over jokes at dinner, and when I heard his familiar stories about how his grandparents survived the World War and endured his terrible singing. I couldn't help but think about what a huge emotional grief Megan, her mother, and Max were going through. To be honest, the passing of Megan's father had a profound impact on her, so strong that she had to stop working to properly mourn. Throughout this difficult period, I was by her side, providing her with constant support. I helped her organize her father's funeral and was by her side during the funeral, providing support at every step. After the funeral, I expected Megan to return to her normal lifestyle, but that didn't happen. On the contrary, her health deteriorated to such an extent that she became the subject of our universal concern. She had known Bob since she was 13, and that was after the death of her biological father. Bob stood up for her and once again took on the role of a father in her life, so I could only imagine what it was like for her to lose her father twice. I tried my best to cheer her up, but no matter how hard I tried, nothing worked. Not knowing enough about Bob, I often found myself at a loss when Megan started talking about him. But I couldn't help but notice how her behavior changed when Max came to visit, and they recalled unfamiliar memories associated with Bob. At these moments, her laughter filled the atmosphere, and her mood improved noticeably for the whole day. But as soon as Max left, she would sink back into her shell. My serious concern for her well-being forced me to make a decision. I asked Max to move in with us and stay until Megan regains her strength and finds solace. When making this decision, I was guided solely by the desire to see Megan recover and gradually get out of her emotional cage. But the consequences of this choice still caused me deep pain. Nevertheless, I am grateful that I made this decision because it allowed me to discover a painful truth. If I hadn't asked Max to move in with us, I might have continued to live in happy ignorance, believing that Megan's love belonged only to me. As Max settled into our apartment, amazing changes took place. Megan's health gradually improved, and she began to recover as I had hoped. Initially, I assumed that Max would stay with us for several weeks, but suddenly his stay was extended to 2 months. The changes in Megan's condition were gradual but noticeable. She began to regain her vitality and became more involved in life. Gone were the days when she spent hours alone in her room, shedding endless tears. I watched her improve with great joy, realizing that Max's presence played an important role in her recovery. Max, steadfastly enduring his grief, did not cause me any fears. Soon, we started playing the usual games again and even resumed our drinking competitions. It was like returning to normal life, and a sense of friendliness and fun filled the atmosphere again. Max and I were immersed in our usual activities when Megan announced her desire to join us. Despite the fact that I had already drunk several bottles, I couldn't resist her desire to take part in the game. I let her compete with her brother, Max, but when I got tired of watching them continue to drink and laugh without a clear winner, I decided to take my leave and go to bed. Not only did I have a strict sleep regime, but I also had to come to the office by 8 in the morning. With a calm soul, I went to bed, unaware of how events would develop. About 1 o'clock in the morning, I got out of bed, feeling the need to relieve myself. When I got out of bed, still half asleep, I was woken up by the touch of cool tiles in the bathroom. It was then that I noticed strange noises coming from the living room. At first, I thought it was just the sound of the TV, but after listening, I realized that this was something completely different. Silently leaving the room, I cautiously headed into the living room. To my amazement, I found Megan in a lively dance, beads of sweat glistening on her forehead, the warmth permeating the room leaving no doubt about what was going on. I stood speechless, trying to realize the unreality of what was happening and hoped very much that this was not a figment of my imagination. When they had not yet recovered from the unexpected fun, I turned on the light, forcing Megan to abruptly stop her movements. Both Megan and Max looked as if they had seen a ghost, and their expressions betrayed their complete amazement at my presence. Megan started saying, "I can explain," but her explanations became unnecessary. What I witnessed was completely understandable and left no room for doubt. Without hesitation, I evicted them from my house. That evening, there was such a strong shock in my head that the next day I couldn't even go to work. Pulling myself together, I went to her mother and told her about Megan and Max's act. The feeling of deep disappointment of the mother was evident, and she could not even speak out in defense of her children. She tried to find support for me, and in the process of her efforts, physical intimacy arose between us. Although I'm not particularly proud of what happened, I couldn't help but admit that Megan's mother surpassed her daughter in terms of feelings. Surprisingly, I enjoyed every moment spent with her, and an affair began between us. It was unexpected given our age difference, but the connection was simply indescribable. The same week when I found out about Megan and Max's betrayal, I immediately turned to a lawyer to start divorce proceedings. At first, she hesitated to sign the divorce papers, thinking that I might change my mind and forgive her. But I remained firm in my decision, not finding the strength to forgive her. As a result, our marriage broke up, and Megan and her brother remained in the dark about my affair with their mother. The affair continued unnoticed, and I enjoyed the minutes we spent together, realizing that it was temporary. But everything changed the day Megan unexpectedly caught us in the midst of intimacy on the kitchen table. She was both shocked and furious, venting her anger at her own mother. Unfortunately for Megan, her conflict led to her being kicked out of her mother's house. Of course, she probably felt the same sense of betrayal as I did when her brother told her mother about our affair. She also kicked him out of the house. Down, I understood that our secret relationship was destined for a short existence and served as a form of revenge for both of them. If you're wondering how I'm communicating with their mother right now, the answer is no way. We realized that our relationship was not destined to last long and made the difficult decision to part ways. 3 years later, my ex-mother-in-law found her new true love. She's a good person and deserves better. I don't know if she communicates with her daughter and Max, and to tell the truth, I'm not interested in it. Let them live their lives. I am now married again, and I have 2 children. These memories serve as a reminder to me to protect myself and my family from infidelity and betrayal. Story 3. Now my wife and I are 29 years old. Our journey together began at school and continued in college and graduate school. While I was still in graduate school, my wife worked as a teacher at a nearby college. She intended to finish her education after I finished mine. Now we have been happily married for 8 years, and in total, we have been together for 10 years. I have recently successfully completed the last stage of training. At the beginning of this year, I made a significant career step and am now moving to a new position in my company. I recently signed an important contract that is of great importance. In just a few months, my current salary, which is about $50,000, will increase significantly, 5 to 6 times. This significant change will allow us to lead a lifestyle that none of us have ever led before. While I'm embarking on my dream job, my spouse is diligently preparing for higher education. We are both looking forward to the amazing future that awaits us both. We were on the verge of receiving the benefits we had been striving for and waiting for with unwavering patience. The fall semester was approaching, and my wife, having said goodbye to her job at a nearby college, was going to start studying. 2 years later, when she finishes her studies, we plan to move to the desired place and live the life we have long dreamed of, in accordance with our desires. But a couple of months before starting work, I couldn't help but notice a note of melancholy in my wife's thoughts. While I remained joyful about the upcoming changes in our lives, she seemed distant and showed peculiar behavior that indicated she was keeping some kind of secret. Even in those moments when we watched our favorite show, she was constantly busy with SMS messages. Her face was distorted into an unusual smile when she received a message, and I couldn't help noticing that she was constantly looking at the phone as if in anticipation of some message. Our plans for spending time together were often canceled, and I was left alone. She always explained cancellations by saying that she needed to finish her schoolwork. Since the beginning of June, I began to notice that she increasingly resorted to the help of these mysterious messages. On Memorial Day, I found myself at work, knowing that she would be at home, absorbed in her school chores. Driven by curiosity, I decided to leave an old mobile phone equipped with a voice recording application in the house. When I returned, I eagerly listened to the recorded sound and was shocked by what I heard. It was a video call between her and a strange man who were having a frank conversation. They openly discussed their plans to meet next Friday after class, delving into intimate issues and even making offensive remarks about me. It became clear that as the conversation progressed, their bond became stronger. From the manner of the conversation, I suspected that this person might be another teacher from her college. Despite the poor recording quality, I used the Audacity program to eliminate background noise and highlight the voice. As a result, I am now absolutely sure that they have been in a secret relationship for some time, since their comfort level during the conversation was obvious. In the process of listening to the conversation, I came to the shocking discovery that he came to my house to have an intimate relationship with my wife. At first, I was doubtful and dismissed this idea as implausible. I installed CCTV cameras to monitor the front door and the backyard, but I soon realized that the camera mounted in the direction of the front door does not record those who enter through the garage, since it is directed in the other direction. Initially, I purchased 3 cameras, but I managed to install only 2 of them. It took a week to carefully hide one of them in the garage and make sure that his wife did not notice it. It was quite difficult to ensure secrecy. Finally, in May, I successfully installed a camera in the garage. I could not find any signs of their presence in the garage. At the beginning of June, we rested in a beach house located about an hour's drive from our house. On the penultimate day, my friends and I agreed to take an evening walk to the beach, intending to admire the mesmerizing sunset. Unexpectedly, my wife decided to cancel the trip at the very last moment. This repetitive behavior made me suspect that she might be visited by a person with whom she was connected. I was deeply saddened that she invited him during our vacation with friends. It was supposed to be a special moment for both of us, a time that we will cherish together. Unfortunately, I didn't have the necessary equipment to capture her words, so I resorted to using my own phone to record the conversation in silence. While I was walking next to friends, thoughts were spinning in my head that during my absence, my wife could have someone else. I couldn't understand why she would risk our relationship so stupidly. We were on the verge of fulfilling our dream, and after countless years spent together, it hurt me to think that she could betray our bond. Back at the beach house, I eagerly listened to the recording, hoping for some clarity. Listening, I heard her opening the door for someone, and after a few seconds, the air was filled with the sounds of intimacy accompanied by the voice of the one with whom she was together. It was noticeable that he came unnoticed and patiently waited until everyone left the house before entering. Despite the fact that I had indisputable evidence, I decided to postpone the conversation with her, wanting to first find out the identity of this mysterious person. She noticed my misfortune, and knowing me well, realized that I was trying to hide it. The anticipation became unbearable, and I had no choice but to get into her phone in search of additional evidence. It was one night that could reveal the truth. While she was sleeping peacefully, I couldn't resist the temptation to look through her messages. To my surprise, I came across irrefutable evidence that she has been in a secret relationship for a long time. the extent of their involvement exceeded all my initial assumptions and became obvious. It turned out that the person with whom she had a secret relationship was one of her former students. They crossed paths in class during the semester, and their relationship developed into an intimate relationship. I didn't know that their meetings happened much more often than I could have imagined. The student quietly parked his car further down the street and secretly entered the house through the garage, hiding from surveillance cameras. They agreed to spend time together during my absence or when I had night work to do. She made up stories about being late at work so they could spend time together. In addition, they were secluded in her office at college during normal school hours. It is shocking that sometimes they even engaged in intimate activities in our bed, not forgetting to change the bed linen. I came across messages that revealed their plans for the next 3 months, coinciding with the period when my new job had to be away from home. Often, they discussed the idea of practically living together in our house for a significant part of the year, using the financial advantages of my higher income to realize their common desires. What struck me even more was that the driving force behind the development of their relationship was my wife. Despite the hesitation of her chosen one, his wife convinced him that she would take the situation into her own hands. She explained that she wanted me to be happy and not arouse suspicion so that they could be together without encountering any obstacles. After reading the message, I was puzzled because it depicted a version of her that was unfamiliar to me, almost a villain and not the person I cherished and lived with for 10 years. The moment I saw these messages, the turning point came. I no longer wanted to rely on the camera to get concrete evidence. Having the audio recording and the text at my disposal, I felt obliged to face the truth. When I gave her a listen to the recording, her reaction was sincere, but after the initial shock passed, she began to deny that she knew what I meant. Even when presented with photographic evidence of her own messages, she stubbornly continued to claim that she had not had an affair. It became clear that she intended to continue this deceptive relationship, taking advantage of my financial opportunities, leading a secret life with her partner. We talked for a long time, and in the end, she reluctantly confessed all her actions. As a result, I am currently in a state of deep confusion, not knowing how to deal with this situation in my adult life. Throughout our life, I've always perceived us as a close-knit family united in decision-making. We consistently worked to achieve a common goal and were incredibly close to its realization. But now, I hardly recognize her. Despite the fact that we have been together for more than a third of our lives, her recent statement about an affair with a student left me perplexed. She claims that she has ended the relationship and expresses her readiness to take all necessary measures to restore my trust. This isn't credible to me, especially considering that the student is only 19 years old, not even of legal drinking age. The lack of respect in our relationship became more and more noticeable when they engaged in intimate relationships at her workplace, in the car I provided, in our own garage, and even in our shared bed. To top it all off, she sent him a message expressing her increased desire. It's hard to imagine how we could mend our relationship after it turned out that I unknowingly financed their affair. It is unpleasant to think that she is jeopardizing her future in this way, especially when she was supposed to enter graduate school in the fall with my support. It was our carefully designed plan that has now been destroyed. It seems that she may not fully understand the seriousness of this situation. She's trying to prove that she's no longer connected to him, but I can't find anything that could restore her full trust. The clever schemes she has used in the past to deceive me, as well as her ability to lie convincingly to my face, do not allow me to find something that could give me the necessary confidence. Thus, it becomes obvious that we should divorce. Although I would like to say with confidence that I am confident in our future, it is difficult for me to imagine the way forward. We are currently in a situation where we are still together despite knowing that we need to go our separate ways. But having her love affair made our relationship even more complicated. The situation is further complicated by the fact that her family adheres to strict religious beliefs, and there are fears that they may break off relations with her because of her infidelity. Over the years, her family has witnessed the love and support from me, considering me a son, and perhaps even closer to her parents than to their own. In addition, her actions at work may lead to job loss, as I have decided to withdraw support for her graduate studies and college debts. If we reveal the truth about her financial situation, it will undoubtedly tarnish her reputation and possibly hinder her career prospects. The burden of these obligations can destroy her dreams and aspirations, and I consider it my primary task to protect her from such destruction. Therefore, I decided to hide this information from our friends, relatives, and acquaintances for the time being. Currently, we are trying to find a plausible explanation for why a seemingly prosperous and successful couple like us suddenly decided to end our marriage, especially in the absence of any visible problems. As we get closer to achieving our life successes, we are hindered by the requirement of local laws to remain officially separated for a long time. Therefore, only last night, we completed the preparation of the initial draft of the necessary documents. I have to thank her for agreeing to most of my proposals regarding our divorce. Throughout the whole process, I tried to be fair and transparent in my wishes and proposals for the division of our property. Obviously, from a financial point of view, I am undoubtedly in a better position than she is. It was important for me that both of our pets were with me, and I'm glad that everything went well. Currently, my wife has not hired her own lawyer, and unless we encounter a problem that we cannot solve on our own, she does not intend to do so. Although we currently have no serious disagreements, having a lawyer representing my interests provides me with an advantageous position. At the moment, I continue to live in the house, albeit in a separate bedroom, until we complete all the necessary legal documents. Such an arrangement promotes open communication about any other adjustments that we may need, but I plan to move soon as all the issues are resolved. I look forward to a speedy resolution. As for my work, it will start soon, and unfortunately, I will not be able to fulfill my initial promise to support her studies in graduate school. This difficulty is connected with the upcoming separation and probable divorce. The divorce paperwork undoubtedly made us both realize the reality of our situation. I suspect that her tendency toward narcissism and manipulation, which I mentioned earlier, could make her believe that I would never really leave. It is very important for her to understand that people have the right to make their own choices, and I decided to leave our relationship. Although she may be confused by our affair, she may be stunned by the current situation, but nevertheless, it really is. As soon as the separation period ends, I will begin the divorce process. Throughout this ordeal, my friends have provided me with incredible support and understanding. Moreover, both of our families have shown great support, often agreeing with my point of view. In conversation with them, I decided to limit our conversations exclusively to discussing our separation, refraining from mentioning the bright future that I imagine. Fortunately, I received generous offers from several people who kindly offered me to stay with them while I determined my next steps. It is a real happiness to have such support and the opportunity to spend some time developing a strategy and planning your future. I can't imagine how much more difficult the situation would be if there were no such opportunities to help me plunge into the world of romance again. A friend accompanied me to a bar where I had the opportunity to start a romantic relationship with someone. For me, as an adult, it was a completely new experience. During this hike, I was lucky enough to meet some really charming people. I had the opportunity to take part in a social event where my ex-wife was not the center of attention, and it turned out to be an amazing experience. Thinking about this, I was considering the necessary steps to move forward in my life. Taking care of myself is a priority, so I started attending psychotherapy sessions and reviving hobbies that I had neglected for some time. I believe that bright days are ahead of me, and I am grateful for the continued support of loved ones and even strangers on the internet who've contacted me.